Welcome to Manufacturing Hub at Automate, powered by Siemens.
Everyone, welcome to Automate 2025. I am Dave. This is Vlad of Manufacturing Hub. We are in the Siemens booth today, capturing a lot of super fun applications and everything else. Today we are joined by Chris Stevens and Annemarie. Chris, would you mind letting everyone at home know a little bit more about you, please?
So my role at Siemens is, I like to say, I'm responsible for the customer experience.
Okay.
And we usually break down the customer experience into people, process, and technology. So my focus is around the people and process. We want to make sure we're always improving the customer experience every step of the way, whether it's in the attraction phase or during the engagement when we're engaged with them, or especially into delivery, because we're focused on outcomes. So it's extremely important for us that we have that adoption muscle, and then we're working with our customers there. So I'm responsible for the people and process side, and then somebody next to me is responsible for the technology.
Okay, very exciting. Annemarie, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm leading our accelerator deployment team. So we're basically working on implementing all the technologies that we have in Siemens and digital industry specifically. But then, one part is focused on the technology, but really also how do we implement and actually integrate and move beyond like first pilots. So we typically start with pilot projects and then really looking into how do we scale these solutions and drive adoption, like Chris said. So I'm very excited about how do we go about actually leveraging technology so they create business outcome and business impact, and what are some of the learnings and how we move past pilots and proof of concepts.
And Siemens obviously covers a very wide range of different technologies under different umbrellas. And so the conversations that I've been having at the Siemens booth, at least this week, has been around manufacturing resilience. If we were to maybe get a definition for someone who's looking to understand a little bit better, what does that mean? I think for me, the first thing that resonates is obviously reducing downtime and optimizing the process. But how do you define manufacturing resilience?
That was pretty good, Vlad. I just look back, you can look back 5 years. And look what happened with COVID. So what happened with COVID was extreme when it came to supply chain. If you look what's happening today with the tariffs, that's extreme and people are trying to adjust. So for me, it's simply what you said is having flexible and robust operations to withstand those disruptions. And that could be equipment failures as well. But just most recently what's front and center, usually as people in mind, is dealing with those big disruptions. How do you do that? How do you make sure that's ingrained in what you're doing every single day in your operations? And you're thinking about that very early on is critical.
Annemarie, anything to?
I think the other element is the biggest disruption or the biggest challenge that we often see is, of course, the workforce challenge, and how do we empower the workforce, and how do we also attract the workforce to want to come work in manufacturing? How do we make manufacturing an exciting space to work in again? And again, like I said earlier, how do we make sure that we bring these first pilot projects on introducing new technologies, more automation, more adaptive production, eventually moving to autonomous production, right? These are always the technology pillars. But then I think what's really interesting is how do we empower our teams to own these solutions and to really drive also bottom up, identify process improvements and identify like the biggest gap in today's operations, and then starting with a pilot, but then also owning that pilot and the scaling and the implementation of these new technologies.
Let me ask both of you maybe a quick follow-up on that side as well. I think the personnel challenges, every manufacturer that I talk to is obviously experiencing them, but I want to take a step back before we dive into the conversation on that side, on the technology side a little bit more. When we're talking about manufacturing resiliency, which technologies come first to mind when it comes to like Siemens helping manufacturers thrive?
What I usually like to start with every single time we're engaged with a customer is the digital twin. So we start with the virtual world. So anytime you're introducing something new, a new technology, if you're introducing automation to get that flexibility and robust operations we talked about, you want to do it in a virtual world, and you want to prove it out in a virtual world, both from a cycle time perspective, how material is going to get there, ergonomic studies, all those things, reach studies, safety is critical. And so all those things we want to prove out in a virtual world before we move into a physical world. So we always go there first. That's typically where the conversation leads to from an engineering perspective. And then we start talking about, okay, now let's talk about the shop floor and how we implement it on a shop floor.
think these are great points. Maybe to add to that a little bit, I mean, we have this vision of the comprehensive digital twin, right? And the metaverse, where you can basically simulate everything and anything from hydraulics and pneumatic simulation to ergonomic simulation to rigid body dynamics to discrete event, etc. What we often see is that's overwhelming also a little bit, especially to some of the smaller manufacturers. They're wondering, like, how can I actually get started? How do I adopt this? I do fully agree that it is the best place to start in the virtual world and virtually validate, because we're always concerned about disrupting and like the integration complexity. And if I implement a new piece of edge or AI or data integration, is that actually going to cause me downtime in the end because I got to implement it? So the digital twin is the place to start. I think what's important in how we deliver that digital twin is also the as a service concept. As a service, not only being our financial modeling or like financial model and the subscription-based model whatsoever, but really having an ecosystem of partners that can actually assist our customers to try out and start working with the digital twin. And it doesn't always have to be that comprehensive digital twin metaverse altogether. It's really about driving bottom up. What is the most challenging process improvement, and is that on a hydraulic simulation, or is that on throughput or routing, and starting where the customer is or meet the customers where they are and really focus on a specific problem more so than trying to boil the ocean and solve it all at once. So I think it's interesting to see how we have this comprehensive digital twin capability, but then really breaking it down in what is the specific impact area where we want to start leveraging that.
Absolutely. I want to go follow up on the digital twin. So on Manufacturing Hub, we've covered digital twin. We've had Colm Gavin on a couple of times. And the things that are possible on digital twin for the past probably 5-7 years is absolutely amazing. When I'm working with customers and clients, sometimes it seems maybe too much, right? Maybe it's more of the boil the ocean type of solution. Can we talk about maybe trends of digital twin? I know you talked about as a service and kind of point solutions. Have you seen more adoption on digital twins from smaller and medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think usually what's interesting is, so there's a digital twin of product and production. So we try, I know it's overwhelming sometimes, but we try to simplify it. So there's product and production. Usually where small, medium companies go first is the product side, because they're using some sort of CAD system or whatever to model their product, right? And so usually when we're engaging on the engineering side, we have a lot of simulation capabilities and those kind of things that we can enhance their existing digital twin. That's not that overwhelming, actually. And typically they're doing all those things anyway. So if you look at the product as the center and all the things you can do around it, documentation, workflow requirements, technical requirements, simulations, whatever. And the same thing exists, by the way, in the production side. They're already doing all those things today. All we're doing with the twin is just connecting them, right? And that should fall on us as the technology provider. And when she talks about as a service, that's why that's so critical, because we don't think the integration should be with the customer. We think the integration needs to fall on us. So that's what we're doing. It's not so much we want to add 10 more things that you're doing today. It's more about the connection of it and the integration. That's what's critical to us when it comes to the...
I like that. And Vlad and I have long debated as to whose responsibility is it to do some of these connections, right? Is it the end user? Is it the potential systems integrator? Is it the technology company? And so it's right here. It's Annemarie. It's completely your responsibility to go do that. But no, I would love to hear more about your thoughts on that. I just want to say that I'm happy to see the move in that direction of connecting all of these technologies, especially when groups may go, are doing, to Chris's point, the vast majority of them already.
I think an interesting aspect to that is like, how do we team up in the end across the ecosystem? That's actually something that we're showing over there on one of the booths, is like the, let's say, collaborative engineering environment in the metaverse, where you would always have different parties involved, from machine builders to system integrators to solution partners to the actual end user, that should ultimately come together to perform this virtual commissioning practice, for example. So to validate virtually all sorts of new solutions that we want to implement, whether that's an AI application or the data integration or the line controller logic whatsoever. So the collaborative environment in the metaverse that we're actually showing today, I think, is a critical element to really bring the ecosystem together and have everybody work on this common foundation, and then have everybody bring in their expertise on the algorithm or the integration piece or like the overall throughput and actually integrate that in one environment where everybody can collaborate. So I'm pretty excited about that.
If I can maybe take a step back from the simulation component, because I know there's quite a bit more to the Siemens portfolio in a general sense, and ask you a question. And I personally know at least a couple of customers, without mentioning any names, of course, that have been pushing the boundary of automation, and ultimately there's challenges and opportunities that come as a result of that. So I wanted to maybe ask you again what kind of maybe challenges you have faced as you've been working on some of these solutions with the customers, but also what kind of opportunities on the cutting edge, I would say, you have seen as a result of them.
I think a stat that I always like to throw out there is, and she alluded to it earlier, is you used to be able to go out and train somebody on the shop floor for 7 years, and they were good. So I could train you on a new technology. I can leave you alone, Vlad, for 7 years. I'll give you a couple raises in between, but you were good with your operation, what you're doing. Now the technology, I think you alluded to it, the technology is changing so fast. So for us, what's critical when we're talking about the shop floor and what's going extremely well is we're introducing things like Copilot. And I talked about it earlier. For us, what's critical is adoption, right? That's the only way we get the outcomes that we're looking for. So adoption's key for us. So most of our conversations, I would say right now, in leveraging this kind of new technology is around the Copilot and how we're leveraging the Copilot to making sure that when that operator walks up, they understand what's going on, they can dialogue with the machine as if they're talking to a human, and they can make the adjustments and then keep moving forward with this resilient idea of resilient manufacturing. That, I would say, is we're spending a ton of time in that area specifically because of some of the things I've discussed.
And so I think to build the bridge back into the digital twin world and how that's all connected and bring this aspect of copilots there. Yes, I mean, we're talking about operations copilots basically that enable a natural language interaction in plain English, right? So literally the machine operator can ask the chatbot what's happening and what do I need to do to troubleshoot this piece of equipment when it's down. We talked about the complexity of simulation earlier. So in the engineering side of the house, we're also adding copilots, for example, to our simulation tools. If I don't have the capability or not the background as a simulation engineer to navigate this complex piece of simulation software, now I can basically also have a chat interface here and say, hey, I want to do this like throughput analysis or this what if scenario. I have these stations, please build it for me. And it goes ahead and builds that, which I think is super exciting. So I think this is where we're connecting the worlds of copilots and connecting engineering and operations. And another piece where we're connecting this, looking into automation and like building basically the bridge between the virtual world and the actual operations is, I would say, in automation lifecycle management. That's another important evolution that we see. As Siemens, obviously, we've been very successful in like product lifecycle management. And 20 years ago, we had this challenge that you would have like your CAD file saved locally in your downloads folder, whatever. And then we started introducing PLM tools. Honestly, on the automation side today, we still sometimes have this challenge, right? So we still sometimes have our TIA portal project and we're trying to figure out, okay, who has the latest version of that and like, where is it? So now connecting these worlds, right, on the product lifecycle management and automation lifecycle management, after we've done first studies in the virtual world and we've done our virtual commissioning, we can now also manage our automation artifacts. That could be PLC code, that's HMI projects, that could be an industrial edge application. We would have different versions that we would have tested in the virtual world, and maybe the engineering copilots wrote some of the PLC code or already created an HMI screen, which we don't trust yet because it's LLM generated. So we want to virtually validate it, but now we can manage all these artifacts, all of these versions, build them, test them virtually, and then deploy literally the identical asset to the real world. So I'm pretty excited about this automation lifecycle management, but I think we need a dedicated deep dive for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that is a great comment. We will get Annemarie and Caleb Eastman, longtime friend of the show, on for a technical deep dive. And if you have ever watched Vlad, myself, and Caleb, you know that we're going to get probably beyond elbows deep into this, and I am super excited about that. I do want to let everyone know that yesterday, Chris and I, along with Jeff Bernstein, had a deeper dive into manufacturing resilience and the entire life cycle of automation to adaptive to autonomous. We'll go ahead and link that information in the show notes below. I would say beyond that, guys, continue to stay tuned for the rest of the Automate coverage. We've got a full day live in person, which will mean we've probably got a whole month or more of you guys to go watch these super fun conversations. Again, Chris, Annemarie, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, I'm Dave. This is Vlad of Manufacturing Hub. This has been Automate 2025. We're hanging out in the Siemens booth, where, as we said earlier, why step when you can lead? Thank you guys for coming and watching. We will continue to go ahead and release these videos, or if you're watching on podcast form, we'll continue to go ahead and release these short conversations into the future. Please do remember to do all of the important things like follow Vlad, myself, our guests, hit the like and subscribe button, and follow along for more Manufacturing Hub adventures.
Awesome.